crush your enemies.
They drew first blood, not me.
See them driven before you.
Oh, my user.
And hear the lamentation of your women.
But I pity the fool.
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate.
Phone home.
They're here.
Oh, real light sleeper, child.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing The Dorm That Dripped Blood, aka Death Dorm, aka The Third Night, aka Pranks. Released April 2nd, 1982, it was written by Stephen Carpenter, Jeffrey Obrow, and Stacey Giachino, directed by Stephen Carpenter and Jeffrey Obrow, and released by New Image Releasing.
Did you say Pranks?
Pranks with an exclamation mark.
That is the worst title for this movie I've ever heard.
It's just a prank, bro.
After seeing Friday the 13th in theaters, film school students Stephen Carpenter and Stacey Giachino were inspired to write a similar slasher, but replacing the camp with an off-season college campus. The film was actually shot on the UCLA campus during Christmas break the previous year, working 17 to 19 hours a day for the full production schedule. They shot a trailer first to help raise money for the rest of the production.
I really thought you were going to say working 17 to 19 hours per day for one day.
For one day, and it was all done. Since the independent production couldn't afford a casting director, the name in the credits, Wesley Lou David, is actually a combination of the middle names of the film's directors and producers. It was shot on handheld 16mm Eclair cameras, which are the same model camera we used to rent out at the CSU Northridge campus for film projects.
Oh. See, I had my own. I had access to my own 16mm camera.
Oh, nice.
Through a friend, but it was a Bell and Howell like 1930s.
I think they had a Bell there too. Yeah,
like wind up. It was a wind up 16mm.
Oh, that's crazy. No, I think the ones at CSUN were at least crystal sync, but that's a wind up is.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Impressive.
It was really cool to use.
Early drafts were called The Third Night, and then the filmmaker's final choice, Death Dorm. But distributor New Image inexplicably retitled the film Pranks, possibly because it came out the day after April 1st, since it doesn't relate at all to the plot of the film. But the distributor quickly pulled it back and retitled it The Dorm That Dripped Blood as soon as they could, as a blatant ripoff title of 1971's The House That Dripped Blood. Thanks to some scenes of graphic violence, it landed in Section 2 of the infamous Video Nasty List, and the filmmakers significantly scaled down one of the more gruesome kills involving a drill and a human skull, and the film was struck from that list. Unfortunately, another list it landed on was Siskel and Ebert's Dogs of the Week list, a classification reserved for the worst films they cover. On a budget of around $150,000, it eventually turned a profit of around $65,000. So after it paid for itself, it made an additional $65,000.
Okay. I was like, there's something wrong with your math there.
That's not a profit. Our story begins on a roadside sign for University Co-op's Dayton Hall and Morgan Meadows Hall, and an addendum to the sign announces these buildings have been condemned by the city and are due for destruction, though the plan is contradicted a bit later with dialogue.
Yeah.
A pickup drives past the sign in the evening with what looks like 20 people standing in the bed and partying. We tilt up on the condemned buildings with a foreboding score under a full moon. Inside the building, we see a frightened man running down dark corridors and pausing for a moment to catch his breath when a pair of hands wrap around his neck to choke him. A knife is stabbed through his hand and then dragged through his palm to the wrist. A title card reads Death Dorm because this was a special edition Blu-ray that incorporated the preferred title of the filmmakers. We cut from this brutal murder to a crowded Christmas party where a guy named Tim is following his sort of girlfriend Joanne around the party demanding an answer on his invitation to move in together. Tim is leaving early tomorrow morning, but Joanne has to stay and close up the building in the next 2 weeks before its impending demolition. But she uses the word renovation at one point and suggests the buildings are being repurposed as apartments, but more than once demolition is specifically mentioned. So they do talk about the buildings are coming down.
Well, but demolition can also be used to describe remodeling.
Sure, if you're just like demo, you're just like taking down the walls. Yeah.
Because otherwise it doesn't make sense. Why are they even there? If they're going to tear the building, why are they going through all this work of like taking out wood framing of the doors and lugging them out to garbage piles?
I'll discuss that a little bit when we come to my theory. The camera pans away from this conversation to an ominous shadow eavesdropping on them. We cut back inside the party, where a girl named Nancy is nimbly dodging pickup lines from fellow college student Jack, who looks no less than 40. Elsewhere in the party, Joanne connects with Debbie, played by Daphne Zuniga. Joanne says Tim is leaving on a ski trip tomorrow and thanks Debbie for offering to help close up the buildings. Tim and his friend Jack, the older flirty guy, discuss the specifics of their ski trip. When Joanne walks up, they lament she can't join them, but she says she'll have help here. Tim confesses to his own insecurities with a joke.
Isn't it going to be a little lonely?
Not for Joanne. You see, Ryan Fraser is going to be around here.
Joanne looks hurt by the joke, and Jack awkwardly changes the subject. Later, we see Joanne working in an office when Brian Fraser wanders in with what looks like bloody hands. Presumably, we are to suspect him responsible for the film's opening strangulation. He blames the stains on a messy printing press he was trying to fix. Behind him on the wall hangs a gay pride flag, which I don't think we've previously seen on the podcast, since the symbol was only formally adopted by the LGBT movement in '78, 3 years before this was shot. Joanne gives Brian some paper towels, and while she helps him clean, Tim knocks on a nearby window to wave goodbye to his girlfriend and her alleged crush.
Great. Just what I needed.
Debbie pops into the office to inform Joanne that unfortunately she can't help out because her parents are headed here to pick her up already. Joanne's last couple helpers arrive, Patti and Craig, and she starts to hand out assignments. They have to empty all the bedrooms, offices, and kitchen supplies.
Why don't I start in the kitchen today?
The kitchen is the last thing we should close up.
Yeah, that's right. We got to make all our meals in there. And because Patti eats a lot.
Apparently, Joanne is in charge of not only emptying the building, but selling all of its contents. Presumably, she's being paid a percentage of whatever she can make liquidating the place. That's what I think is going on here.
Yeah.
That they were like, you can stay for the break. Whatever money you can get for the things that are in here, you can keep that money or half of it or something like that. Yeah. But otherwise, we need to empty all these rooms for whoever's coming next.
She does make some commentary about needing the money.
Right, yeah.
So that makes sense that she would get what she can sell.
Now, are they living in these buildings?
Yes.
Yes.
So when she's in her like very nice decorative dorm room,
yeah, that's upstairs
that's
yes.
in the
where
building that's
stuff.
been condemned.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Is it condemned,
yes.
or they're just planning to?
Yeah, it's condemned. The sign on the road said it was condemned by the city.
Right. Okay.
That's why I was like,
they shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, I was like, are they in the condemned building, riding up and down that elevator?
The next morning, we see Joanne helping Tim and Jack load up their Jeep for the ski trip. Tim leans down to kiss her before he leaves, and she seems to lean away from it.
What about Jack?
Jack and I have plenty of time to kiss.
Go on, get out of here.
Wish me luck.
You'll need it.
Right away, wrenches are being thrown into the operation when someone named Mr. Kepler calls to cancel an order for 75 tables. We cut to a steam room where Debbie is updating a master inventory on the wall and is startled by a loud noise. But it turns out it's just a metal lid crashing to the floor, and she never investigates what tossed it there.
And why does she have like her inventory stuff down in the steam rooms?
Yeah,
that's where you keep that information.
Like, they're functioning out of an office.
Yeah.
When Joanne's talking on the phone, they're in some kind of office space. You think the inventory would be there,
but the whiteboard's in the steam room, Richard.
Yeah,
that's the only place you could possibly do it.
Trying to get rid of all of this stuff. I think you can move anything anywhere you want.
They probably have to throw this whiteboard away. It should be on the whiteboard itself. It just says in the bottom corner.
The whole conversation about the tables reminded me of that I think you should leave sketch about the driver's ed.
What does she do again?
What's her job?
Tables, okay? Her job is tables. That's great.
What does she do?
Tables!
But how is tables a job?
I can't know how to hear any more about tables.
From a shaky handheld POV, we watch Patti and Craig talk about giving their relationship another chance and kissing in a dark cafeteria. I feel like this whole cafeteria has blackout curtains for some reason. It's just like they decided anytime they were going to shoot in the cafeteria, it had to be 2 a.m. or later.
Mm-hmm.
That night, Debbie stops by Joanne's room to say goodbye and apologize for abandoning the mission. They promise to see each other after the winter break, and at the last second, Joanne remembers to ask for the inventory list, which Debbie accidentally left in the storeroom. She offers to go grab it and leave it downstairs in Joanne's office on her way out. We follow Debbie to the pitch-black storeroom, where she searches for the inventory, and that same shaky POV starts stalking her. She's looking for the list when she hears her father honking a car horn outside. She calls down to announce she'll be just another minute. She finally locates the inventory and heads to Joanne's office to leave it on her desk.
I think that her searching for this paper is amusing. Now, I'm not sure if we're supposed to get the idea that whoever this POV is messed her stuff up or something like that.
It's weird that it's so hidden.
She's going all over the place to look at every sheet of paper she could find on any little shelf, like way up high or down low.
Didn't you
or
put it here like an hour
things.
ago?
Yeah, like what happened?
And when she finishes like searching a stack, she just throws all the pages into the air.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? Making a bigger mess for us.
So, not to spoil things, but our POVs are not going to be the same person throughout the entire movie.
That's true, yeah.
So, like, I feel like...
No idea who this one is.
Yeah, well, I feel like sometimes thinking back on these POVs, I'm like, I'm not sure who they are all of the time.
Yeah. I think we had that issue with Deadly Blessing where we were like, I don't know who killed each person because there are 3 people that could have killed them and at least 2 of them were killing people.
Or I guess it could also just have been a stylistic choice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just the way that they directed it. Debbie's parents are getting impatient waiting in the car. Her mom makes her dad go look for her because she's tired.
Okay, so maybe you guys had the same thought. When the dad says, she said she'd be right down, I was waiting. Body's going to hit the car. Body's going to hit the car. Come on.
So good.
Hit the car. And the dad goes, all right, I'll go look for her. Body's going to hit the car.
Doesn't happen.
Nope. I was like, what?
Nope.
Why were we on them? Because he says, I'll be right. She'll be right down. And we're on them for like a good 20 seconds.
And then you learned later that that's just the way that they shot this movie.
I was like, God dang it.
Missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
While Dad trudges up the stairs toward the storeroom, we see another set of legs coming down the stairs and carrying a baseball bat with nails hammered through it. When they meet in the middle, Dad is brutally clobbered in the head against a concrete corner of the stairwell. Debbie's mom continues waiting, frustrated in the car, when a hand reaches through the open driver's side window to unlock the driver's side back door.
Seems like an unnecessary detail to unlock this back door.
Yeah, it should have just been unlocked.
Go in the back door.
It is weird that they would bother with that moment. It's like,
I guess they needed a reason for you to know somebody was there without showing their face.
But you see the door open.
Yeah.
The killer slides silently into the back seat behind her. Meanwhile, Debbie is finally headed down to the car and finds her father's corpse on the stairs. She screams in horror, and back at the car, we see the killer wrap a garrote wire around her mother's neck to strangle her in the passenger seat. He's evidently choking her hard enough to cause her neck to bleed and soak through the collar of her sweater. Again, Debbie arrives too late and screams when her mother's body falls out of the car as she opens the door. She passes out from the fright, and the killer drags Debbie by her arms behind the car before starting it up and slowly backing over her unconscious body. This is the first of 3 people who will be killed unconscious in the film. It's like, it just seems unnecessarily brutal. Then he hops out to collect her body and stuffs it in the trunk before driving away. The next morning, we see the 4 volunteers making breakfast in the kitchen. Patti leaves to find napkins, but is surprised to encounter what looks like a homeless, frizzy-haired dumpster diver still on the property.
Oh, not before we spent a solid minute finding out how everybody wanted their eggs.
Right, yeah. Very important.
Yeah, I got the gif of how you like your eggs.
When she returns to the kitchen, she reports the man's presence to Joanne.
You mean John Hemmit?
That guy's a real freak. I wonder what he's doing around here.
Apparently he lives there.
Yep.
Because he's got a room in the dorms.
Yeah. Craig insists it's Joanne's job to tell the guy off, and she shrieks in fright when she notices a spider on the eggs she's cooking.
Craig.
Come on, what are you screaming about? It's my egg.
But it's just plastic, and Craig put it there as a joke. This might be the only prank in the movie pranks, but it's also a terrible prank because cooking plastic doesn't seem super healthy. I think I'd rather eat a cooked spider than a cooked plastic spider.
Well, the Dr. Hibbert says, this is one of those fake ice cubes with a fly. You know, the chemicals they use in these plastics are very toxic. Ironically, it would have been more sanitary to use a real fly.
Later in her office, Joanne gets a call from the power company offering to send someone today to cut the building's electricity. She says they need power for 2 more weeks. A handyman named Bill storms in to complain that his favorite drill has gone missing, and Joanne promises to find it. That power company thing is totally unnecessary, too. There's so many details here where it's like, why bother? Why bother with this moment?
I mean, I guess it's just to show that she's got a lot on her plate.
I guess.
And she's very frazzled.
Joanne heads upstairs to knock on the door to room 25 where Hemmit should be, but gets no answer. She peeks through the window from the outside and sees a few belongings in his room. Seconds later, she sees the door closing and knocks again, but he still won't answer.
Come on, I know you're in there. John Hemmit.
When he doesn't answer, she leaves him a note. On her way back to the office, she encounters Bobby Lee Tremble, who's here to write a check for some of the desks Joanne's getting rid of. The man gets creepily close and asks if she's doing this work alone, but she assures him she has help. Back in shaky POV, we wander slowly along the building's rooftop, past a mattress on the ground, eventually tilting up to see the condemned buildings again. That night, we see Bill the handyman working at his desk and turning his head suspiciously as if he heard a noise behind him before resuming his work.
I was like, what is happening? At this point,
I don't know what he's hearing, but we don't even see this guy again for another 25 minutes.
Yeah, because after this is just after the rooftop scene where nothing happens.
Right.
And then a guy is like, is somebody there? He doesn't even say is somebody there.
Why is there a mattress on the roof?
Oh, well, you know why.
Because there's a mattress everywhere. Like there's mattresses in the parking lot. There's mattresses by the dumpster.
That's the old roof sex mattress.
Oh, okay. Of course.
Seasoned to perfection.
Ew.
Serve 6.
Oh, God.
We cut back to the volunteers sitting around a table under a lamp in an otherwise pitch black room from 20 feet away. Later, Patti and Craig play pool, and he tries to explain to her that homework is a waste of time, and if she just flatters her teacher, she'll get all A's without studying.
I got an A. I didn't read the book. I didn't even take the final. All I did was tell the professor how much I respected him.
God, I don't believe in that at all. I think you should get the grade you earn.
Hey, I earned that A. You have no idea how difficult it was to tell that professor how much I respected him.
I guess I just take it a little bit more seriously than that.
Joanne and Brian sit together in a small library to talk about her relationship troubles with Tim. Outside, we see someone tiptoeing around the building in the dark. The two would-be couples start playing 2-on-2 pool, and right away, Craig is taking it too seriously.
Patti, a monkey could have made that shot.
Drop dead, Craig.
Patti steps away from the game to grab a couple drinks from a cooler, but freaks out when she sees John Hemmit watching her through the window. Brian volunteers to go talk to the guy and ask him to cut them a break, but he doesn't get any further than Joanne did, knocking on door 25 and then immediately giving up. Searching another dark room, he's nearly attacked by a man from the shadows until he realizes this is Craig, who's come to help him look, but they can't find John and return to the girls empty-handed. They all agree they can't let John wander around all night to continue harassing them. So Brian and Joanne head to the Morgan Meadow Hall, while Patti and Craig check around here at Dayton Hall. As they walk around outside, Craig thinks he hears a voice up on the roof and climbs a ladder toward it, leaving Patti alone at ground level. At the other building, the other team are splitting up the same way. Brian offers to check the roof and advises Joanne to work her way up from the second floor. She tries to take the elevator down, but it seems jammed in the shaft, and she can hear someone above the elevator car clanging away on something. The door in the elevator ceiling is pulled open from above, and when someone shines a flashlight down in her face, she screams.
That you, Joanne?
Oh, God, you scared me to death.
It's Bill, the handyman, who heard the strange sounds from the elevator and came out to fix it. Once he does, she asks him to send it down to the second floor, but for sure I'd be using the stairs exclusively after this experience.
Yeah.
All 4 volunteers reconvene in the rec room again, and Craig is out of breath from having just chased John Hemmit across the property. They decide it's time to sleep, and Patti asks to sleep on Craig's floor, but he offers to share his bed, so she asks for Joanne's floor. We cut away to a couple in bed together, but it's neither of the couples we've been following. It's actually Bobby Lee Tremble, who came out yesterday to buy all the desks. He climbs out of bed with his girlfriend to make a late-night booty call to Joanne, the woman who just sold him some desks and made her disinterest in him very clear. Bobby's girlfriend keeps wandering into the room in a silk negligee to ask what he's up to. Bobby makes little to no effort to disguise his actions, occasionally shouting his girlfriend back to bed, but most of the time he's blatantly asking a reluctant Joanne out for a drink with his girlfriend standing 3 feet away from him. After he hangs up, he says it was his business partner Sam. His girlfriend gets her tits out to entice him back to bed, and he says he's going for a drive and leaves her standing there, boobs akimbo. Back at the co-ops, we see the handyman Bill with elevator grease all over his face, stepping into a restroom to clean himself up. He props a small pocket radio nearby to listen while he cleans. The graffiti on the wall behind Bill includes another Kilroy Was Here drawing for the season, and the name and phone number for Nancy, possibly the same Nancy that Jack was hitting on at the party earlier. Do you guys recall the last Kilroy was here drawing we saw on the podcast?
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago.
Probably less than 10 episodes back. It's a period piece.
I can't remember.
It was a swamp shack where the guys from Porky's thought they were going to lose their virginities. But when they go into the back room to start making fake sound effects, we see Kilroy was here on the wall.
Oh, okay.
Nearby, we see a hand plug something in, and then we follow the cord to Bill's favorite drill on the floor in the corner of the room. A hand reaches down to collect it. What follows is the most graphic scene the film has to offer, and includes almost every frame of what had to be removed to satisfy the censors, who eventually took this film off the video nasty list. The killer grabs Bill around the neck and shoves his head down into the sink, where he was washing his face, and then the killer presses the drill into the back of the man's skull, eventually piercing through his head into his brain. Bill puts up a fight for a surprisingly long time, and the drill throws his blood and brains in splashes around the room.
I thought this was pretty well done.
Yeah, it looked pretty good because the arm is real, but the head is fake.
Yeah.
So it's a good mix.
But then they keep cutting back and forth between like the shot of him actually in the sink from the side, and then
with the bit
drill
off
is
the
kinda,
drill. Yeah.
Yeah, the drill is just kind of behind it, so you can't tell that it's not actually going in there.
Yeah. The killer tosses Bill's body to the floor and then, to add insult to injury, swats the pocket radio with the drill, smashing it against the wall. The next morning, we see Craig and Brian consolidating a lot of the building's junk in a wood pile. They spot John Hemmit carrying a brown bag down the road, and Craig offers to confront him about last night. Craig angrily reminds Hemmit that he shouldn't be here, and if he keeps harassing the volunteers, he might get hurt. Hemmit never responds directly to anything Craig says, and eventually Brian steps in to tell Craig he's said enough, leave him alone.
So this is where I was questioning what they were doing, because they're hauling wood.
Yeah.
And they said, why they put the dump so far away? It's like, so why would they need to dump anything?
I guess it's just stuff that they decided they didn't need for the remodel.
But if the original plot, or the supposed plot, is that they are not remodeling, but are in fact just selling it.
They could be doing the demo and not the remodel.
I thought the plot of the story originally, or what it's supposed to be, is that the buildings are coming down.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Okay. So that's why this made no sense to me, because like I can understand
why bother disassembling these things if the whole thing is a junk pile eventually.
Yeah, I mean I can understand selling off assets like equipment and desks and tables.
But
and
this
beds and
wooden
whatnot.
door frame from a 30-year-old building is not going to be useful.
Gotta get that copper out of the wall.
There you go.
That's where the money is.
The girls pop into the mailroom. Patti got a postcard from her folks informing her that her ex-boyfriend John has been asking about her. Apparently, she never told them she and John broke up. This is basically a pointless detail, except to set up this ex-boyfriend as a potential red herring, but I'm annoyed that they use the same first name as the other red herring. Why are there two Johns in this story that are red herrings? Patti says she's lost interest in her ex-John since developing a recent crush.
Okay, I won't tell Brian.
Joanne!
Patti is shocked that Joanne could guess the right guy, even though she seems to be struggling in her relationship with Craig, and Brian's the only other dude around. Joanne agrees to keep the secret. Later, we see dinner prepared at a table in the dark cafeteria, but the neighboring kitchen is lit as if it's the middle of the day. Joanne is just finishing up in here, and back at the table we see an insert of hands stealing a loaf of bread. Craig collects candles from a closet to light the table, and as he sets them up, he notices the bread is gone. He sees the cafeteria door swing closed and concludes that Hemmit has struck again. He tells Joanne he's going after the guy. Joanne runs to tell Brian that she's worried about Craig chasing down Hemmit. While she tells him, someone takes a bat to the rest of the plates around the cafeteria table. When the volunteers all convene at the table, they're shocked by the mess. Later, a cop shows up to take statements from them about Hemmit's routine harassment.
Can you give me a description of him?
He's about 6'2", light, frizzy hair.
Is he about your age?
No, a little older.
The cop admits they just arrested a man down the road who matches the description, and he'll look into it and get back to them.
So did they arrest John?
Maybe. He never gets back to them.
Well, yeah, but John is around in the rest of the film. So
presumably not.
Okay, so
They
it's just somebody else
arrested
that happened
another
to look
6'2"
like
frizzy-haired guy that was on this abandoned road. That is weird. There's so many details of this where it's like, wait, why did anyone say that if it has nothing to do with the rest of the film? That night, Joanne is wrapping up a call with her mother, and we see dust crumbling from the ceiling of her room in the foreground. When she hangs up, she closes her blinds. She sits down on the bed, and we watch her make 2 real-time and unsuccessful phone calls on the way to reaching Patti to announce she thinks there's someone upstairs from her room.
No, I couldn't get a hold of Brian or Craig.
We literally watched you dial both of these numbers and wait for it to ring out before you called the next one. She asks Patti to join her in danger. We cut now to a dark room and we follow a silver cable along the floor to where it feeds through a hole in a door. What the fuck is this?
I assume it's the phone cord.
Yeah.
Because the phone cord's about to get cut.
But it doesn't get cut in this shot.
No.
We just follow the cord around and then it goes into a hole in the door. We never see this angle on this room again.
Well, yeah, the phone's about to go out and the power's about to go out. I don't know which cable this is, but presumably they wanted to show us that somebody is looking at cords that may be cut.
I just feel like you would show these things first to establish they're there and then show them getting cut. Or even just show them getting cut.
Yeah.
But don't just show them existing. Like, hey, by the way, if you were wondering how that phone worked when she called Patti, here's an example of a cord. Patti arrives at Joanne's room and she tries the phone again, but someone's cut the line. We didn't see it, but they must have. Someone must have done it.
It must have happened because she said it happened.
Right, that's right. Downstairs, Brian's playing pool by himself, I think, when the lights suddenly go out. Joanne screams off her balcony for him to come up to her room, and he hears her, and he says he will. On his way up the stairwell, he suddenly has a bright flashlight shining in his face. Before
he tries the stairwell, he tries the elevator.
Does he? And it doesn't work?
He keeps pushing the elevator button. I'm like,
the power's out.
You just established that the power's out.
Well, there might be emergency power just for the elevator. I definitely want to use this unpowered elevator in this condemned building in the middle of the night. He can't tell who's holding the flashlight because it's blindingly bright, but the figure steps forward and slashes at his arm with a machete. Craig knocks on Joanne's door and says he was about to take a shower when the lights went out, and he thought they were pranking him. Pranks! Pranks! She tells him no.
But these aren't actual pranks, so...
Nope, not a prank at all. The only prank so far has been your dumb spider omelet. She tells him the power and phones are both dead. Joanne sends Craig and Patti to check the roof for the sounds she heard earlier and volunteers to stay here and wait for Brian to arrive. While they search the dark corridors of the building, Craig keeps obnoxiously spooking Patti with unexpected noises. He abandons her for a moment in the kitchen and starts flipping fuses to get the lights back on. He's flipping all the wrong switches to turn on Christmas lights and industrial mixers and slicers, but never the room lights.
Yeah, obviously there'll be a reason later, but I was like, just turn everything on.
Yeah, there's a master, and you should be able to flip them all.
He's like keeps asking her, like, is this the right switch? She's like, don't ask, just keep turning them all on. But I also like that all the machinery was just in an on position.
It just turns on by itself, as soon as it's powered.
Are you sure you know what you're doing?
She backs away from all these self-operating appliances, and someone throws a hand over her mouth to pull her around a corner. They wrestle her to the floor until the killer knocks her out with the big heavy lid of a cabinet. We see a hand twisting a knob on a big boiling pot. When the water comes to temperature, the killer drops her whole unconscious body into the boiler. This is a huge boiling pot of water. I'm very impressed.
It's impressive.
I also think, though, even if you were unconscious, being dropped into boiling water would probably...
She does kind of wake up.
Yeah.
Because she puts her hand on the edge of it to try and climb out, but the killer keeps slamming the lid on her fingers.
Do you recall the last time we boiled someone to death?
Boil me, boil me, boil me.
That wasn't even
face
the one
to
I was
face.
thinking of.
That was Island of Death.
That one was Island of
What is
Death.
that?
Island of Blood?
Island of
Blood. Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
That's it. There you go. But I was thinking of one before that.
Was it the one where she pushes the guy's face into the boiling hot dog water?
Oh, it wasn't even the one I was thinking
That's
of.
My Bloody Valentine, I think.
I was thinking of a different one.
Okay, another boiling kill.
Are they totally submerged? Or?
They are totally submerged in boiling water. Full body.
Full body boil.
Do you need a hint?
Wait, Halloween 2?
Yeah!
Yeah, there we go.
In the hospital.
Craig returns to Joanne's room and tells her that Hemmit knocked him out and he lost track of Patti up there. There's another knock at the door, and they go silent to listen for whoever's there, but don't hear anything further.
They don't ask who it is.
That's true. I mean, that would be admitting that they're in there, I guess, if they're worried about getting killed themselves. Out in the hallway, we see a crazed Hemmit standing and shivering with a bloody machete in one hand. Craig and Joanne get tired of waiting in her room and head out together.
Why does he have a bloody machete?
Because he picked it up on his way up the stairs. They make their way slowly down the stairwell when Hemmit suddenly appears and punches Craig hard against the wall. Joanne tries to stab him with a pair of scissors, but he grabs her arm and shakes her weapon to the floor. She runs away and slams the door between them, and Hemmit leans against it and tries hopelessly to lure her back out.
You've got to trust me. I came here to find you. To take you away from here. I'm sorry I took the bread. I just took it.
She backs horrified away from the door and eventually crashes into the disassembled corpse of Brian and lets out a blood-curdling scream. She snatches a machete off Brian's body and opens the door. When Hemmit rushes in, she slashes him down the shoulder and cuts a deep, bloody gash down his chest. She runs down the stairwell to where Craig fell earlier, and Hemmit chases her, bleeding profusely. Somehow, Hemmit gets around in front of her, and she slams another door in his face. Eventually, he finds her a third time and corners her against a locked door.
Please, help me get you out of here.
She grabs a fire extinguisher and sprays it in his face before running away again. I feel like I would have just clobbered him with it, not just sprayed foam in his face. And again, she drops her new weapon as soon as she's 5 feet away from him. It's like there's a machete and a fire extinguisher on the floor somewhere, and this guy's still chasing you.
Her inventory's full.
Oh, I guess, yeah. I have too many pieces of wood from door frames. She finds the wounded Craig, who tells her of an underground tunnel to the other building. They crawl along the floor and find Hemmit looking for them. They decide to use Joanne as bait for the man, and as he approaches her, Craig jumps out of a crawl space, and the two fight together until Joanne cracks him in the head with a bat and he collapses.
Yeah. Craig's plan is like, you lure him out, I'll fight Hemmit. But Hemmitt's kicking his ass.
Yeah, and he doesn't like grab a weapon to prepare for this face-off. He's just like, I'm just gonna tackle this 6'2" guy. Craig tries to assure her they're safe, but she's not convinced, and then he drops the film's twist on her.
Oh, Craig. Let's get out of here right now, please.
We can't. Look. Look what we did.
No!
We did it together. Don't you understand? It's been me the whole time. I'm the one. Hemmit knew. He's known all along. That's why he tried to stop me. He tried to stop us, but together we were too smart for him.
She finally realizes that Craig has killed all of her friends, and worse, tricked her into killing Hemmit. She runs away from him, and he pursues her slowly. She crouches to move down a short corridor crowded with pipes. When she comes to a sign labeling an exit, she turns off the nearest hanging lights to hide in the darkness. Hemmit runs back to where he set down his flashlight to resume the chase. After a lot of slow creeping, he finds her and even offers to show her Patti's boiled corpse. He tells Joanne that Hemmit saw him kill Patti, which is why he tried to drag her away.
And this is another uninteresting set of corpse reveals.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, look, I just put them all in these cabinets. It's like, you put her in a boiling pot. It would have been great for her to, like...
pop out of the pot.
Yeah.
Well, and all of those machines going, like, I was certain that at some point, like, we're going to use, like, the meat slicer or something.
Yeah. Or send her through, like, one of the processors, like in The Exterminator.
God, put her in that dough, like, just, like, put her torso in that dough thing and just, like, get her guts ground up.
So Emmett knew this whole time.
And said nothing.
And said nothing. So, like, I mean, I realize that we're probably combining, he actually is kind of a weird, creepy,
yeah, I think he's a little
character.
slow, and so he's not able to communicate very well.
Yeah.
But why is he there? He lives on campus?
I think he was, maybe have
Probably
been a student there.
Has nowhere to go.
And just didn't leave when they told him to get out by, and nobody forced him to.
Yeah, that kind of tracks with who he is. But, like, just say... there's a killer. There's a body. Like,
or Craig. Craig did it.
Craig did it.
Craig's killing people. I saw him kill Patti. Maybe he doesn't even know Craig's name. I don't know. All he says is, I want to get you out of here. I want to get you out of here over and over again, which could be scary or it could be helpful. You don't know. We need context, Hemmit. Craig shows Joanne the bodies of Debbie and her parents in another closet, and then she shoves him into it and locks it behind him, and then runs to the exit sign she saw earlier. How does he get out of this cabinet? I guess he just shakes his way out of it.
Yeah.
She climbs a ladder and eventually finds her path blocked by the corpse of Bill, the handyman. Not fully blocked. She could climb over him, I think, but gross, I guess. So she just doesn't. She just stops there. Outside, we see Bobby Lee Tremble arrive in his pickup truck. When Craig finds Joanne stuck on the ladder, she apologizes for the things she said about him since she found out he was the killer. He seems confused by her apology. Bobby Lee is suddenly looking down through the grate above them and shakes it to get Joanne's attention. So she climbs toward him as fast as she can, but Craig gets a hand on her waistband and drags her back down to the ground. He accuses her of cheating on him with this sudden stranger. He puts a flathead screwdriver to her neck and demands to be taken seriously. Outside, we see a police car roll up and park next to Bobby Lee's truck. Craig is still dragging Joanne around inside and then bashes her head into a pipe to knock her out so he can focus on Bobby Lee. The two men are suddenly wrestling hard on the floor until Bobby gets the upper hand, standing over Craig on the ground. The cops walk in and point their guns at Bobby Lee's back, ordering him to freeze. Craig calls out to the cops, pretending to be the victim.
It's about time you guys got here. Get this guy away from me. He's a maniac. He's a killer. He's trying to kill me.
The cops order Bobby Lee to turn around and face them, while on the ground, Craig grabs a knife to arm himself and prepare an attack. Bobby Lee has no good option. Turn to face the cops and take a knife in the back, or stay to face the knife and get shot in the back. I'd probably choose to get stabbed in the back.
Right.
So just turn around and face the cops, and then as soon as this guy stabs you, get away from him and they'll shoot him. But that's not what he does. Craig swipes at him with the knife, and the cops interpret Bobby Lee's sudden reaction as an attack and shoot the man dead. Craig rises slowly and thanks the cops for saving him. He tells them his friends are upstairs, and the cops leave him unattended to check on them.
Yeah, he's like, let me just stay here for a minute with this corpse.
Yeah.
It's like, why they wouldn't leave you here?
You just leave me here at the crime scene, please. When the cops are gone, he sneaks back to Joanne's unconscious body and apologizes while he carries it through the basement to the building incinerator. The cops realize he's missing moments too late.
He was just here a minute ago. I left him right here. Why don't you have a look back there where the incinerator is?
Upstairs, more cops arrive, and the first officer on scene phones dispatch for a coroner. Over his shoulder, we see a small chimney smoking profusely. Presumably, this is the chimney above the incinerator.
Gosh, that thing stinks. Is it supposed to smoke that way?
Well, it doesn't matter. They'll be tearing this place down anyway.
So they are tearing it down. Unless they mean just parts of it, just walls of it.
Right.
But it sounds like when he says that, he's talking about the whole building is going to come down. The emergency vehicle sirens howl into the night, and we return to the sharp strings of the score stolen shamelessly from psycho composer Bernard Herrmann. The end. That's the dorm that dripped blood.
Nobody survives.
AKA Death
Well,
Dome.
Craig,
I think Craig does, yeah.
Craig, our murderer does. But
Yeah.
I just feel like that's unusual. We have no final girl or anything.
That's the points that this movie gets.
Yeah.
This is clearly just another in a line of thousands of Halloween/Friday the 13th ripoffs that came off. This is the smartest ending of most of these cheap slashers.
Yeah.
I love that these two film students were just like, we're going to make our own thing. And they actually put some thought into an interesting ending. Because the ending is great here. The fact that they trick what would be the final girl into killing an innocent person.
Right.
And then reveal it to her while she's still alive. I feel like so often they don't find out the terrible thing that they've done because they die before it's revealed.
Right.
So I love that she gets to put together that she killed an innocent person who was trying to save her, and then the bad guy still kills her and gets away with all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which it's a very unusual ending. The only thing that I thought would have been slightly more unusual is if Hemmit just was the killer.
Yeah,
like,
that would have been weird.
Just be like, oh, that guy that we've been hinting at is doing this whole time? Yeah, he's doing it.
He did it, yep. Yep. Which is kind of like when you see him shivering with the machete in his hand, you're like, oh, okay. I guess the red herring was the actual killer the whole time? That's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually really appreciated that they did this bit of a twist on the end that didn't totally break the story, and it's like kind of a downturn ending, and you even get the joke with the cops upstairs at the end.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh God, that body stinks. Anyway, they're going to tear all this shit down. Who cares? It's good. I actually enjoy that part of it.
Wow, that's the only part that's enjoyable, I think.
and I didn't even enjoy that. I was like, this is just missed. Like I said, you all know I'm not super into horror films, but also just all these missed opportunities to do interesting things with the horror.
Yeah.
Like there's the drill kill, which is great.
That's the only good kill.
Yeah.
Really.
Otherwise, people are just getting bashed or slashed at. And again, like you're going to put someone in a boiling pot. The expectation is someone's going to find it.
Right.
Like, you know, like the body in Halloween 2 or in the pool. Like, it's not interesting if you just put some. It's like that would be the same as putting somebody in a box, and that's the last time you ever see him.
Right.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. You know, you put somebody in an oven because you want to see him burn. You put them in a boiling pot because you want to see the body.
Right. And you also, I feel like a part of what makes these films great is usually the terror in the person who's being killed.
Mm-hmm.
And all three women in this movie who die, Debbie, Patti, and Joanne in that order, are all three knocked unconscious, just nonchalantly knocked unconscious and killed before they regain consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, that's weird that they don't even get the panic of like, oh, I'm being murdered right now.
Yeah.
Like, we literally don't even see that part of it. It's just like blunt force trauma to the head to knock them out and then dump them somewhere that they die.
And there's so many things that you could do to do that. With Debbie, have her just have the camera moving towards her and her eyes open up and then cut to the boom, 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 boom.
I still like your other idea that maybe he chases her all the way back up the stairs and then throws her off onto the car.
Because that line was too perfect. She said she'll be right down. Because then we're on them for 20 seconds and nothing happens. I was like, they're building up the tension because it's going to happen.
Yeah. And the other girl, like we said, that she gets boiled in this pot completely unseen. We don't even get one of those like, Island of Blood peely face makeups. She just disappears into a pot and we never see her again. And the other girl we don't see because we just see smoke coming out of a chimney, and that implies that she's been incinerated.
And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the implication of incineration, but the boiling pot thing was kind of like, and he drove the car away just to bring the bodies back.
Yeah, that is weird. I didn't even think about that.
Because I get you want to get rid of the car.
Yeah. Because otherwise I'll be like,
but that means
that's Debbie's parents.
Yeah,
so he drove the car away and then carried the bodies all the way back?
Bodies back?
That's very weird.
That's a thumbs down for me.
It's a thumbs up for me, honestly, because I appreciate this kind of just a microcosm of independent horror and the fact that they did something interesting with the ending of it.
I think it's still a thumbs down. I don't think it's that unique and interesting to make up for how slow the rest of it is and uninteresting most of the kills are.
Yeah. No, they definitely needed more and better kills. There should have been more than 4 people working this whole weekend.
That also felt weird. Only doing 4 people.
Should have been like 7, I think. 7 would have been good. What are we thinking letterbox for this one?
I don't have it very high because I was pretty bored. I have it at 49 out of 52. It is below Parasite, but above Soggy Bottom USA.
I actually just moved it up 1 spot. So it is 50 out of 52, which puts it below Death Wish 2 and above The Comeback Trail.
Wow, you guys have it pretty low. I'm surprised. I have it in 33, which is just under The Last Shark and just above Death Wish 2. Credits will go fast here. Our writer, director, cinematographer, editor, Stephen Carpenter, this is his first feature. Later, he writes and directs The Power in 84, Kindred in 87, and Soul Survivors in 2001, though his biggest credit is for writing Martin Lawrence's vehicle Blue Streak and for creating the TV series Grimm, which ran for 6 seasons and 123 episodes.
No kidding.
Yeah. I really like Blue Streak. That's a fun movie.
Yeah, Blue Streak's pretty fun.
The other writer, director, editor, Jeffrey Obrow, also wrote and directed The Power and The Kindred with Carpenter, but nothing further I recognized. And the other writer, Stacey Giachino, this was her only writing credit, but she also produced The Power and The Kindred. The music here came from Christopher Young. This was only his second composer credit after a movie called Robbie 14 years earlier. Later, he scores The Power, Avenging Angel, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Invaders from Mars, the 1986 Trick or Treat, which is great, Hellraiser, Flowers in the Attic, The Fly 2, Species, Virtuosity, The Man Who Knew Too Little, Urban Legend, The Big Kahuna, The Hurricane, Wonder Boys, Swordfish, The Core, Ghost Rider, and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3 and Drag Me to Hell. So I guess he stepped in for Elfman. I guess Elfman just did the first 2.
Yeah, and I guess really you have all the music cues
that
you need.
You have the main theme, yeah. Laurie Lapinski played Joanne Murray. This is her only credit acting. Stephen Sachs played Craig, not to be confused with the famous baseball player from the Springfield Nuclear Power Plant softball team. He's also in 3 episodes each of Chips and Days of Our Lives. David Snow played Brian. Before this, he was Felix in Quadroon, and later he was Tommy in Lords of Magic. Pamela Holland played Patti, just this. Dennis Eli played Bobby Lee Tremble. He appears only in this and something called Deadly Sunday, which IMDb dates as another 1982 film, but doesn't have any release dates for. Woody Roll played John Hemmit, no other film credits. Daphne Zuniga played Debbie. This was her feature film debut. She's back this season for Losing It, and later The Sure Thing, Vision Quest, and probably her best known role as Princess Vespa, the Leia stand-in for Mel Brooks' Spaceballs.
She's a base.
Later, she's in The Fly 2. She was Joe Reynolds on 111 episodes of Melrose Place. She returned to voice Princess Vespa for the 2008 Spaceballs animated series, and she was Victoria Davis in 40 episodes of One Tree Hill.
I think she was one of the only people to come back. It was like her and Dom DeLuise.
Yeah. Wait, Dom DeLuise wasn't still around when they did that in 2008, was he?
He died in 2009.
Oh.
But they could he's credited. But it could have been old. It could have been old footage too. I've never watched it.
Who does Dom DeLuise play in
Pizza the Hut?
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Jake Jones played Bill Edgar. I guess that's the handyman's last name. Does anyone say Edgar in this? I don't hear that. He plays a janitor in the next film from the same director called The Power. Robert Fredrickson played Tim. Later, he's Ethan in Pumpkinhead. Chris Morrill played Jack. He's Ron Prince in The Power. And Chandre, just Chandre, one word, played Alice. And just this, only acting credit. Everybody below Chandre is only in this film. So from Chandre down, it was exclusively The Dorm That Dripped Blood for their credits. I think that's everything for The Dorm That Dripped Blood. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. If you enjoy what we're doing, consider giving us a review on iTunes. I don't believe it helps visibility, but it's good for morale. And if you really like the show, maybe you should join our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast for access to all our monthly 70s reviews and a hand in choosing next month's film. Patrons are currently choosing between A Haunted Turkish Bathhouse, Dark Star, Eskimo Nell, Eyeball, Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS, Old Dracula, Snuff, and TNT Jackson for a 50th anniversary review next month. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing The Long Good Friday, which IMDb describes like so. An up-and-coming gangster is tested by the insurgents of an unknown, very powerful threat. This is also our last episode of the year. Thanks so much for joining us for a fifth year of the podcast. We're two and maybe a third years into the decade in terms of what we've covered so far. We're halfway through the 70s on our Patreon episodes. That's crazy. We've done 5 years of the 70s with a movie for each release month. And hopefully we'll get the whole way to 79 and then maybe start the 70s over. I don't know how that'll work, but
I don't know. I think we should go into the 90s.
Just jump the decade and go straight to the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe we do that. It would be nice to talk about some 90s movies.
I think so.
Yeah. Let us know what you think wherever you can find us. I'm probably more active on Discord than anywhere else lately, although I am on Instagram pretty often too. So either one of those two. And if you're enjoying the show and you're enjoying what we're doing here, obviously if you can let anybody know that you think would be interested in the show, we're trying to grow. I think 2025 I'm going to put some more effort, be more proactive into reaching new ears. So if you have any suggestions for how we might do that, shoot me a line with that information. That'd probably be helpful. And but thank you again so much for listening, and we just appreciate having you all with us on this crazy experiment.
London, Good Friday. Not just any Good Friday, but the long Good Friday.
Outside a church? You don't go crucifying people outside a church, not on Good Friday.
Harold Shand, undisputed king of London's underworld. Now he's setting up the biggest business deal of his career.
Hands across the ocean, right?
To the future. Someone is out to stop him.
You think of anybody who might have an old score to settle or something? Who's big enough to take you on? Someone, somewhere, knows, right? I want the man who knows. Right. Who fancies what?
Auto, casino, stabbing, a bar blowing up. What is this, a gang war?
No question. Harold and I have no doubt that by tomorrow the problem will be settled.
Walk to the car, Billy, or I'll blow your spine off.
It's not a shooter, is it, Harold?
Oh, don't be silly, Billy. When I come hunting for you with me fingers, I've treated you lot well, even when you was out of order, right? Well, now there's been an eruption. One of my closest friends, he's lying out there in the freezer. And believe me, all of you, nobody goes home until I find out who done it.
What should have been the greatest day of Harold's life suddenly becomes the longest. Suddenly, he's fighting for survival.
You kidding? We got gang war on our hands, right? We already have. Colin's been carved up and I've got a bomb in me casino and you say nothing unusual?
The Long Good Friday, a terrifying nightmare from which there is no escape. The Long Good Friday.